Happy New Year, guys! So, as you can see, I finally activated my E1 Robin. I have joined the dark side. The reason I did this was because I was getting fed up with hitting like a wet noodle, and with the HP inflation, it's feeling even worse. And so I decided, you know what, I have the E1, I pulled it, might as well use it. Honestly, if you want to continue using older, outdated characters, like the best way to keep them somewhat relevant is to pull Eidolons on your supports. I don't care too much about collecting characters, so I'd rather skip a bunch of characters I don't really care about. So that includes characters like Sunday, Fugue, really strong characters that I skipped, and I'd rather just go for Eidolons on the characters that I do use. It's just the way I play the game. So anyways, I'm going to do a Blade showcase on both halves of the MOC because this MOC cycle is pretty kind to Blade. The top half has full wind weakness, so obviously Blade is viable on the top half, but especially on the bottom half, we have the True Sting. And the reason why Blade works really well on the bottom half is because Jade absolutely demolishes the True Sting, especially with the Trotter buffs. This MOC is catered to Jade, and Blade is one of Jade's best teammates, so the Blade Jade team here was a 2-cycle clear for me, while the Fei Xiao Blade team on the top half was a 3-cycle clear. So before I actually show you the clears, I'll show you a bit of the builds. So Fei Xiao is E0 with a sword play. Pretty relatable build. My Robin is running the Bronya cone, and one change I made was I switched her from Vonwak to Lushaka, but I then tried it again with Vonwak, and honestly I cleared in the same amount of time. It's just that I finally got a Lushaka set and I wanted to try it out. Gallagher, E4, quid pro quo, nothing too special. And then finally Blade is the one that I kind of want to showcase the new build. If you have watched my older videos, you'll probably notice that my stat spread is completely different now, and that's because I finally got an Eagle set for him. So all of December, I just farmed Eagle nonstop every single day, and I finally got a working set. So this is a 5-roll, pretty good. This is a 4-roller, also pretty good. This is pretty dog water, and then the boots are also pretty bad. Okay, so the reason for the switch to Eagle is because, as you can see with these teams, I'm not running Bronya or Sparkle, so there's no source of action advance, meaning the only way for Blade to get more turns in is with more speed. But Blade is pretty stat hungry. He wants crit rate, crit damage, and HP, and so it's really hard to fit speed in without sacrificing your other stats. Instead of speed, the Eagle set comes in clutch with the action advance, and also because of Blade is wind, he can make use of the wind damage. Okay, so the problem with Longevis is a tailor-made set for Blade, but the problem is Longevis gives you crit rate, and Blade has so many sources of crit rate, such as Light Cone that gives you 18% at base, and also in his traces he has crit rate traces, so he doesn't hurt too much for crit rate. And if you have enough relic investment on your Eagle set, such that you can get a decent crit ratio going, you won't really miss the crit rate from Longevis. So Longevis is still a very, very strong relic set on Blade, but if your Blade is on his own without the action advance, then I think Eagle is a strong relic set. Okay, so I've been rambling for too long. Now I'm going to show you the clears. Okay, we start on the top half, and personally speaking, I think the second half, the one with True Sting and the Jade Blade team, that one's more interesting to watch. So you can just skip to the timestamp I have there. But if you want to watch this half, I'm going to give you a basic rundown of this team. It's pretty much just a Fei Xiao team, but with Blade instead of her typical support. And the reason I have Blade in here is because Blade does AoE damage, and with the Trotter buff is really strong, so you kind of want to kill the Trotters. Blade does enough AoE damage that he can bring the Trotters to a health threshold where Fei Xiao's E can kill them. And so ideally, you use your Fei Xiao's E to kill the Trotter, and then her follow-up attack will hit an elite. And then Blade also does AoE toughness damage, so he's able to shred the toughness bar of the elites so that Fei Xiao can launch an ultimate against a weakness broken elite. And so with my current Blade build, you can see that with the Eagle set, action advancing him, he can get 3 turns in the first cycle, which is really, really strong. So this is a way of getting Blade to act multiple times without Bronya and Sparkle. just switch him to the eagle set. And also, like, you want to just make sure that the elites are, like, their HP levels are similar, just because the Trotter buff deals damage to both elites. And I mean, because this team kind of plays itself, I think I might as well just ramble about some Star Rail hot topics. So the hottest topic at the moment is HP inflation or power creep. And there's two sides to this. One side is saying that the power creep is insane, and I'm more leaning on this side. And then there's another side that says, well, the HP inflation isn't as, like, it isn't as bad as it seems, which is true because you have the Trotter buff. And my take on this is, I'm not a big fan of the MOC buff being so powerful. Like, I get why they're doing this. It's not my ideal way of playing the game. Like, I like to build my characters and feel like my characters are the ones doing the damage. Instead, right now, it kind of feels like a mini game where you're just playing a kill the Trotter mini game. Like, I guess it's interesting for some, and it helps lower investment people do better in the MOC. And I guess it's also their way of combating zero cycling by making it so these buffs get more value the longer your fight goes. Like, the more cycles you get, the more Trotters you get. Whereas if you're zero cycling, you don't get access to a lot of Trotters. And they also did this with the previous MOC, where the MOC buff only triggers on the following turn. And so I think this is their way of combating zero cycling by making it harder to zero cycle and making it easier for weaker teams, I guess. I don't know. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of having so much emphasis on the buff, because it feels like most of the time the buff is a way to FOMO people into pulling for the current banner unit. So this Trotter buff favors AoE characters really, really heavily, and they're about to release a lot of AoE characters like the Herta, Jade, etc. And so they're kind of like pushing a certain unit with these buffs, and by making the buffs super, super strong, you're pretty much causing people to FOMO into the newest character. I'm gonna hold off on using Robin ult because I want to wait until after Svarog summons the hand. Then I could action advance everyone and use their abilities to break Svarog. And I think if Svarog gets broken, the hand doesn't activate. But I think I should have used Blade ult instead of Feixiao ult, because I'm not getting any value out of the Blade ult action advance anyways. And so I could have reduced Svarog's toughness bar with Blade and then let Feixiao do big damage with their ultimate on a broken Svarog. But like, this is fine too. It's just not optimal. Also, I target Svarog with this E because I'm not worried about Feixiao. I'm not worried about Feixiao's mark, because I can use Gallagher to auto attack the wolf on Gallagher's turn, and then that will cause Feixiao to do a follow-up attack on the wolf, and so that will clear the mark of Feixiao anyways. So I can launch all the heavy damage on Svarog while still clearing the mark on Feixiao. And the reason I'm focusing Svarog is because Svarog has more HP than the wolf, and with the Trotter buff, you want to keep their HP sort of in line with each other so that you don't overkill one and then are left with a lot of HP on the other, just because the Trotter hits all the elites. So yeah, you get more value when they're similar health. Yeah, so this was a case of where Feixiao's E was enough to one-shot the Trotter because of all the Blade's AoE attacks, and so her follow-up attack was able to hit someone else. Okay, I got pop. Robin's ult here to get one more turn in here. And I want to kill this Trotter so that 2 more can spawn in on the next cycle. If this Trotter lives, then I only get 1 Trotter on this cycle and it'll be harder to kill Svarog. So you kind of have to manage with the Trotter buff. They spawn 2 Trotters in every cycle. And if you don't have space for them to summon in because there's like a max 5 enemy limit, then you kind of just lose the buff. So you gotta make sure you have enough space for the Trotters to spawn in. So I think I'm debating if I should try to kill a Trotter down or hit Svarog, but I think at this point I can kill them with just the Trotters. So Blade can definitely get an ultimate in because the Wolf has AoE attacks. Yeah. And then Fei Xiao still has her ultimate. So I have more than enough damage. But also Robin has another ultimate, so yeah, I have way more than enough damage. So 3 cycles on a Fei Xiao team, it's not amazing, but honestly it's not that bad either. Okay, so that was Blade on the top half. Now let's move to the bottom half, which in my opinion is the more fun one. And I have to give you one warning. I've tried many different starts, I guess, and the one that worked the best is if Blade gets hit by the first attack and if Robin gets hit by the second attack. Because the second attack gives Robin enough energy for her to ult pretty much immediately. And then here we can do Blade's skill and then use Robin's ultimate so that everything that comes after this is buffed by Robin's ultimate. So this is like the start that you have to kind of fish for. Which means some resetting was required. Like it's not just a first attempt sort of thing. It's like you kind of need to fish for that perfect start, but once you have it, it should be smooth sailing. Okay, I hold my Blade ult until after Fu Shen ults just so that Blade goes above 50% HP, so now after using his ultimate you can get a follow-up attack. Okay, so now we just need Blade to be hit one more time. So there's still some RNG involved, but the next mob hits twice, so we just need one of them to hit Blade, and then Blade can launch a follow-up attack, and then Jade can launch a follow-up attack. Oh, well we can kill without Jade's follow-up attack launching, so that's actually pretty good, because Jade gets to start the second wave with her follow-up attack. Okay, with the True Sting, the biggest thing to manage is his summons. You don't want him to fill the board with his summons because you want the Trotters to spawn in. So there's a bit of managing space, I guess. You don't want him to fill up the board with his summons. Otherwise the Trotters won't spawn in. So I attack True Sting with Fei Xiao instead of the spawns because I want to keep the spawns alive so that when Jade does her attack, she gets the most stacks out of it. So here you can see because they're both alive, Jade gets 3 stacks from her basic. Okay, and then I think I have it set up so now I can do the Blade E into Robin ult thing again. So now Blade's follow up and then Jade's follow up, they're all buffed by Robin's ult, which is really good. Okay, and then here we clear the field. Oh, also my Fei Xiao is on a somewhat damaged build. She's running 4-piece Longevous with quantum damage orb. Wow, 400k on a follow-up attack from Jade.
That paradise may be unreachable for me. Savor it for me.
On the final stage, when True Sting has 1 HP bar left, he spawns 3 mobs. And that's bad if you can't deal with them in time, otherwise you only get 1 Trotter. So you gotta be careful here. Luckily, I think Jade deals with the mobs really well. Especially if they're the quantum mobs. She can pretty much two-shot them. Okay, so I had my ultimate ready on Jade in case he spawned more. But he didn't spawn that time, so we actually are pretty well off now. Because 2 Trotters spawned in. We have enough for a Robin ultimate at the end of the turn, so I'm pretty sure there's more than enough damage here to finish everything. Now we have an E proccing a follow-up, and that also triggers Robin's ult. Do we use it here? I think we do. I feel like you could also wait until after Jade goes, so that Jade gets another turn, but I mean, I think there's enough damage. Have Blade's auto, and then he gets to do another auto into an ultimate, and that should give him 1 more turn. I think I E here with Fu Shen because if the enemy attacks Fu Shen, I might get enough energy for her to ultimate. Well, actually, no. That's actually nowhere near enough. Never mind. I should have just auto-attacked with Fu Shen then. Okay, but ulting here with Blade should action advance him up, so he gets 1 more turn. Oh, 1%. That actually works out for me because then I get the cinematic ending, but the 1% is a bit of a trigger because of PTSD of how many times I was trying to 0 cycle in the past and was left with 1%. So just seeing that still gives me anxiety. And there we go. 2 cycle second half for a total of 5 cycles for Blade.